What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. My name's Marcus and thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. Today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 of my worst Pokemon mistakes, whether it be grading or whether it just be buying singles or making purchases that I shouldn't have made the purchase or I just bought in at the wrong time. Whatever it may be, these are 5 of my worst mistakes. And I just wanted to make this video so as to give awareness and help you guys not to make the same mistakes as I did. Before we get into this one, don't forget about that monthly giveaway valued at $50, and we're just going to be giving that away to one of you guys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel because I'll only be picking subscribers. Comment on this video and like this video and you'll be entered to win. Also, don't forget that I do have an Instagram and I'm always posting updates and just cool finds that I get and just trying to keep you guys updated on Instagram. And also we have an eBay store. Check out the eBay store, link in the bio. We're always selling stuff there. And we're always buying collections. If you hit me up at officialvipokemon@gmail.com, we'll give you a fast and fair quote. With all that out of the way, what we're going to be talking about is my worst mistakes. And number 1 is going to be this one. If you guys didn't see that video, I'll try and probably put a better picture on screen of this Umbreon character secret rare Beckett 9. And what is the story on this one? Well, kind of already covered it in that video. Go ahead and put that in the info card in the corner there if you want to watch it after this video. But basically, I bought this card. I actually bought a VMAX Climax booster box a long time ago, probably 3 years ago now. And I was opening up the box. I got an Umbreon CSR that I was super stoked about. And I'm a huge Evolutions collector. As you may know, I've got several behind me. So when I got this card, I knew I wanted to grade it. I hadn't done my first submission yet even, but I knew I wanted to grade it. I knew it was going to be one of those cards. And I graded it and it came back a pristine 10. You can see right there, pristine 10 label, the blue label CGC. And I really wanted to get this card in a black label 10 because I was getting familiar with Beckett and I just saw how much of a premium those black labels got. And I was absolutely blinded by desire. I wanted it so badly that I didn't care how the card even looked after I cracked it out. I cracked it out of the CGC case and then I sent it into Beckett without even looking it over really. And the problem is with this example is just because a grading company gave a card a grade does not mean that it is that grade anymore after they graded it. And here's why. They even say this on their website, they are not liable for anything to do with that card after it leaves their facility, okay? Because after it leaves their facility, anything could happen to it, okay? It could get cracked, it could get damaged, you could crack it out. They are not held liable for anything after that point. And also, there's a whole slew of things that can happen with mistakes. Like for example, the grader could have accidentally damaged it after they gave it the grade. There's the person who encapsulated the card that could have damaged it. I've seen instances where this little piece that is holding the card on the side, where they accidentally pinched the card on the side and it, knocked a card from being a 10 all the way down to a 5, It happens. Mistakes happen, and most of the time if you reach out to them, they will give you a full refund. But my point is, just because that card was a pristine 10 does not mean that it is still a pristine 10. And when you're crossing over, grading companies have different standards. So what one company may see as a 10, another company may see as a 9. Which a 9 grade is not that bad, guys. I am not absolutely devastated about it getting a 9. I mean, it is upsetting and I would have liked it to get at least a 10, but a 9 isn't the worst thing in the world. And it's not like it went all the way down to a 6 or something, CGC did not directly damage it. Another thing too is most of the time, I don't think that Beckett really has this problem, but with CGC and PSA, the card is just loose, moving around, but Beckett actually has an inner well where it kind of pinches the actual sleeve that the card is in. It's like a little sleeve that the card is inside the case, which I think is really awesome. But That is my mistake number one, which was crossing over a card completely blind, not looking at it afterwards. And now, whenever I crack something out, I thoroughly inspect it, because at the end of the day, if that card is not worth more after you cross it over, then you should just save your money and maybe just leave it in the actual slab that it was. Or if you can't tell and it's already been cracked out, then maybe you might just be better off just keeping it raw. You know, there's instances where a card is not worth any more in a PSA 9 than it is raw, especially with modern cards. And we'll kind of talk about that point a little bit more in this video. But that is mistake number one. Mistake number two for this list is going to be buying cards that I thought were going to be worth grading and they were not. And a while back, it was actually one of the first times that I was really buying singles on eBay, and I won like six or seven auctions, okay? And you know, I saw that they were, you know, kind of being graded by the seller, and he was saying, you know, near mint to mint for a lot of these cards. And at the time, I was still a lot, you know, less familiar with grading, and I was also less familiar with a lot of the terminology. And so near mint to mint, if you actually look at PSA's website and you look at the different grades, near mint to mint is actually a 7, okay? And I actually talked about this point a little bit when it came to TCG Player, because they sell the highest tier card as near mint. And I think that that is really interesting that near mint is the highest grade that you can get on these websites like eBay and TCG Player, which really I feel like there should be a higher category for some of these, because like it's impossible to tell from photos. And when I bought a ton of those cards off of eBay, I could not tell from the photos at all, compared to when I got them in hand and looked at them, how much was seriously wrong with them. I way overpaid for these cards. And this kind of, you know, this mistake really, I've mainly taken away from it that you cannot for certain tell by photos how a card looks. And honestly, there's no real way to completely avoid this if you're interested in buying singles to grade them. There's just going to be damages, you know, there's just absolutely nothing you can do about it. And it's just like, I don't know what it is about glare. There's like always that little bit of glare on like one of the edges of the card, or they leave it in the sleeve, or they just take the picture perfectly to where like it doesn't draw attention to the big indent that's in it. An example of actually from those cards that I bought was I recently had a PSA submission that came back, and it had a PSA 6 Gengar from Arceus, a level X Gengar non-first edition, which is actually rarer than the first edition version of that card. And it came back a 6, and that was a card that I had bought on eBay for like $50 or $60. I sold it for like half that on eBay in the PSA 6. I shouldn't even have graded that card. You know, that's just another example of just not blindly grading cards. But on top of it too, is it came back such a low grade, and I knew, you know, as soon as I got it in hand, it looked way worse than the eBay, but I wanted to make my money back somehow. And, you know, that is a learning lesson for sure. And yeah, so basically when it comes to buying singles online, even if there's photos, just be cautious, be aware that it's impossible to tell for certain on images if the card is exactly a PSA 10. Which, to be fair, I feel like that's partially the reason why near mint is so commonly sold. You know, it's near mint or better, you know. Because at the end of the day, you know, hey, a lot of those cards are around the near mint category. So that's mistake number 2. Mistake number 3 is buying sealed product and keeping it sealed is your best bet when it comes to investing in Pokemon. And the reason for that is because when you open up packs, you're taking a huge risk. And if you want the best bet at getting your return on investment, then keeping the product sealed is the best way to do it. And I've made the mistake of buying product with the idea in mind to keep it sealed, and then turning around months in the future and opening it up. And I should have just kept it sealed. You know, I would have made more money. It would have been a lot less work to sell those raw cards or grade them. To be fair, there's some times where I've gotten really lucky. Like, for example of this, I bought a bunch of these Crown Zenith premium collection boxes. And I got them for about $45 to $50 a box. And I was planning on keeping those sealed because I felt like Crown Zenith was going to be an amazing set, even though it was really printed, like a lot, and there was just tons of it everywhere. I felt like it was going to be a great investment, and I still do feel like it's going to be a great investment, and there's going to be a lot of people after Crown Zenith in the future. There's just so much going for it. That's great. But I bought a bunch of those to keep them sealed, and I ended up opening up all of them. All of them. I bought 8 boxes of these premium collection, the blue and the red ones, Zacian and Zamazenta, and I opened up all of them. And I actually got really lucky because I got 2 of the Giratina Golds and 1 of the Arceus Golds from that set, and then a whole bunch of other cards too. But those were the 3 big ones. And I ended up making my money back on just those cards after they came back. They both, the Giratinas came back PSA 10s, and then the Arceus I had graded with CGC, and it came back at CGC 9. So, yeah, I did really well on those, but it was absolutely, luck at that point. And what I'm trying to say is, if you're planning on keeping it sealed, keep it sealed. If you're planning on opening it up, then sure, go for it. But when it comes to investing, that is a big mistake that you can fall into. All right, so mistake number 4 is going to be one that I've kind of covered a little bit already in this video, but it has to do with grading cards that you know are not a PSA 10. And basically, I have made the mistake in the past where I have just graded stuff that I knew wasn't a PSA 10. It was a modern card that was worthless in anything but a PSA 10, and I graded it anyways. I just said to myself, oh, well, it might get a 10, it might get a 10. Do not be blinded by desire. That is one of the worst mistakes you can make in this hobby. When it comes to being blinded by desire or FOMO, I just feel like that's the hugest one that I see people making, and I personally have made that mistake too. I've graded stuff that I knew was not a PSA 10. And an example of these cards right here, I wanted to show these because I am not going to grade these. I bought these cards and I wanted to grade them, but I know for a fact these will not get 10s. And the reason being is because left to right centering on both of these cards is off. With the Suicune, it's thinner on the left, and with the Entei, it's thinner on the right. And I just know, based off of PSA standards, that grading, when it comes to centering on the front of the card, they are extremely strict. You will have a card that is flawless, minty, there's no whitening, everything is fine with the card. But if the centering on the front is bad, they are way more strict. Now, if the centering is bad on the back, they are less strict about that. Why is that the case? I don't really understand that, but it just is the case. They want about a 60-40 centering on the front of the card, and then on the back it could be as bad as 70-30, I believe, for a PSA 10. And I'll flash the standards on the screen there. These are 2 cards where I'm not going to make that same mistake. I've made that mistake before, and I'm done doing that. I'm done grading cards that I know are not PSA 10s. And some people will argue with themselves and say, oh, well, I've seen PSA 10s that looked worse. I've seen PSA 10s with a little white spot. I've seen PSA 10s that were off-center. And yes, I have seen that too. But you can't use that as a reasoning to make a mistake and grade something you know is not truly a PSA 10. I mean, it's just, that is such a folly thinking, and I've found myself doing that, and I don't do it anymore because that's just not going to work out long term. You can't just be grading things on the idea in mind that, well, this one got a 10, so it must be a 10. It's just not how it works, and I don't want to see you guys make that same mistake, because sometimes some cards are just worth the same value raw as they are in a PSA 8 or 9, especially with modern cards. When it comes to modern cards, you're only doing well for yourself if it's a PSA 10. So that's mistake number 4. Mistake number 5, and honestly one that has cost me probably the most amount of money in this video, other than the grading one, is going to be learning when to sell. I remember I had several cards that were worth $100+ and one that actually was worth $500. It was the Pikachu VMAX from Vivid Voltage, the Rainbow Pikachu that a ton of people had on their radar. And that was like pretty much peak FOMO, I would say, for Pokemon. Pokemon was just flying off the shelves. You couldn't buy it anywhere. And Vivid Voltage, I feel like that Pikachu was worth around the $500 mark in a PSA 10. And I had gotten that card and got it in a PSA 10. And I held on to that thing for so long. I held on to it for just months, over a year. And I just watched the price go down and down and down and down. And I was telling myself, oh, it's going to go back up. It's going to go back up. Maybe it'll be a good long-term investment. I had no idea what I was doing back then. I seriously had no idea because it just kept going down. And I waited until it got down to like $200. And then I sold it. And that was like the worst thing I could have done. I should have just sold it in the very beginning when I could have sold it for $500 when everyone was still peak FOMO and just buying cards like crazy. And here it is, I waited so long and then it just went down. And there's some instances where being patient can serve you well, but there's a lot of instances where cards that are not really rare will go down in price. And if a lot of people are talking about a card, then that's when the price is going to be high. If there's not a lot of people talking about the card, then it's probably going to be a good time to buy and not a good time to sell. Those are the 5 mistakes in this video. I appreciate you guys listening to me. I kind of went on a tangent for a little bit there about some other things, but the points stand, okay? The mistakes are there. I hope that you enjoyed this one and you were able to take away some things from this video. I really appreciate you guys coming by. Don't forget about that giveaway. Also, feel free to check out the eBay store and my Instagram. We've also got a referral link down in the description on Whatnot for $15 towards your first purchase. We do a bunch of shows there and do a bunch of giveaways, and it's a ton of fun. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.